I was sitting in a courtroom where the air felt heavier than it should have, like every breath had to push through judgment before it reached my lungs. My mother was only a few feet away from me, dressed neatly, posture perfect, lips curved in a way that almost looked amused. When her lawyer said the word insane, she laughed. Not nervously, not uncomfortably. She laughed like someone enjoying a private victory. I did not react. I kept my hands folded, my back straight, my eyes fixed forward. I had learned long ago that reacting was exactly what she wanted. My name is Laura Bennett. I am 30 years old, and according to my own mother, I am incapable of managing my life, my finances, or my future. This hearing was supposed to be about my late grandfather's estate. That was the official reason. But everyone in that room knew the truth. This was not about money alone. This was about power. It was about control. And it was about erasing me in public. The petition claimed I was mentally unfit. It used carefully chosen words, medical-sounding phrases, and references to my past that were stripped of context. Anxiety, emotional instability, poor judgment. Each phrase was delivered calmly, confidently, like facts no one should question. My mother nodded along as if she were reluctantly agreeing with a painful truth, playing the role of a concerned parent forced to do the unthinkable. Anyone watching without knowing our history might have believed her. I did not look at her. I did not look at the audience behind me. I did not look at the judge. Silence was the only thing left that still belonged to me. My mother had prepared for arguments. She had prepared for tears. She had prepared for anger. She had not prepared for quiet. This all started 6 months earlier, after my grandfather passed away. He raised me for most of my life. When my parents divorced, my mother moved on quickly, remarried, and built a new life that did not include me. My grandfather became my constant. He taught me stability, routine, and patience. He believed in responsibility over drama, in planning instead of reacting. When he died, he left me his estate. It was not extravagant, but it was meaningful. A house, savings, a sense of security I had never known. 3 weeks after the funeral, my mother challenged the will. 6 weeks later, she filed for conservatorship, claiming I could not be trusted with my own inheritance. That single filing changed everything. My bank temporarily restricted my accounts. My employer placed me on leave pending review. Friends became distant. No one accused me outright, but doubt does not need accusations to grow. It only needs silence. Now here we were, my mother laughing, her lawyer confident, the courtroom listening. Then the judge leaned forward. She did not raise her voice. She did not show emotion. She simply asked one question, calmly and clearly, that made my mother stop smiling. And in that moment, I knew this story was not going to end the way my mother expected. The judge did not rule that day. Instead, she scheduled a full evidentiary hearing and ordered evaluations, financial disclosures, and sworn statements from both sides. To everyone else, it looked like a delay. To my mother, it looked like momentum. To me, it looked like time. And time was the one thing I needed. Outside the courtroom, my mother finally spoke to me. She smiled as if nothing serious had happened, as if she had not just tried to strip me of my autonomy in front of strangers. She told me this was for my own good. She said she was protecting me. She said I would thank her one day. I said nothing. Silence had carried me this far. I trusted it to carry me a little further. What the court did not hear that day was the history behind her confidence. My mother had always rewritten reality to suit her needs. When I was a teenager and struggled after being sent away to live with my grandfather, she called it instability. When I asked for space as an adult, she called it rejection. When I succeeded quietly, she minimized it. When she failed loudly, she blamed me. She did not lie impulsively. She curated stories patiently. The petition she filed was not emotional, it was strategic. It referenced therapy I attended as a teenager after my parents divorced. It quoted lines without dates, diagnoses without outcomes. It painted a picture of someone permanently fragile, frozen in her worst moment. What it did not include was the rest of the story. It did not include recovery. It did not include growth. It did not include the last 15 years of stability, education, and independence. Omissions can be more powerful than lies. My employer asked me to step away quietly while the matter was reviewed. They were polite. They were careful. They were afraid. Fear spreads faster than facts. Friends asked cautious questions. Some stopped calling altogether. My phone felt heavier every day, not because it rang, but because it did not. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened the box my grandfather kept in his study. Inside were old papers, handwritten notes, and bank statements neatly organized by year. He used to say that confusion disappears when you line things up properly. I did not know yet what I was looking for. I only knew that my mother would not have made a move this aggressive without a reason. As I reviewed the records, patterns began to emerge. Withdrawals that did not match his usual habits, timing that felt intentional, amounts that were rounded, repeated, and close together. I did not panic. Panic clouds judgment. I made notes. I created timelines. I did exactly what my grandfather taught me to do when something did not make sense. I also remembered something else. In the months before he died, my mother suddenly reappeared in his life. Frequent visits, sudden concern, urgent conversations she never explained. At the time, I was grateful. I thought reconciliation was happening. Now, sitting alone with those records spread across the table, I felt something colder settle in my chest. This was not about my mental health. It never had been. This was about what my mother thought I did not see, and if she believed I was too unstable to notice details, she had made a dangerous mistake. I stopped trying to defend myself and started observing everything. The court wanted evaluations and reports, but those things move slowly. What does not move slowly is paper. Paper tells the truth without emotion, and emotion was exactly what my mother relied on. While she prepared statements and practiced concern, I prepared records. I requested full banking histories connected to my grandfather's accounts. Because my name had been added years earlier for convenience, I had legal access. I did not rush. I reviewed 2 full years, then 3, then 5. I compared patterns. I marked dates. I checked locations. What emerged was not chaos. It was intent. Large cash withdrawals always occurred within days of my mother's visits. Not once or twice. Every time. The total amount was just under $50,000. Enough to matter. Not enough to draw casual attention. I remembered how tired my grandfather looked during those last months. How he apologized for small things that never bothered him before. How he asked me once, quietly, if banks ever made mistakes. At the time, I told him they rarely did. I was wrong. Banks make mistakes. People make plans. I drove to his house the following weekend. The rooms still smelled like old books and lemon cleaner. I moved carefully, not searching, just noticing. Drawers that were usually precise were disturbed. Envelopes were missing. Receipts stopped abruptly. Disorder does not appear suddenly in someone who lived by order unless something interrupted it. That was when I remembered the safe deposit box. We opened it together years ago after a minor neighborhood scare. Inside were documents, bonds, and personal items. I had not thought about it in a long time. At the bank, the clerk verified my name and brought the box without hesitation. Inside, beneath everything I expected, was a small notebook. My grandfather's handwriting was unmistakable. The entries were dated, not emotional, observational, amounts, names, questions he had written to himself. He noted giving my mother money at her request. He noted feeling pressured. He noted confusion. This was not decline. This was documentation. He knew something was wrong. He just did not know how to stop it. As I read, my hands did not shake. Clarity replaced fear. The narrative my mother built depended on one assumption, that I was too unstable to connect dots. That assumption collapsed quietly. The next document came from the bank records, a power of attorney filed months before my grandfather's death. It gave my mother authority she should not have had. At first glance, it looked legitimate. Then I checked the notarization. The notary's commission had expired years earlier. That was not a mistake, that was fraud. I forwarded everything to my attorney and said nothing to my mother. Silence again. People who believe they are winning reveal more than they should. My mother grew bolder. Her confidence increased. In court filings, she escalated claims about my instability. Each exaggeration made her story louder. Each loud claim pulled attention away from the quiet truth building beneath it. By the time the hearing date arrived, I was no longer reacting. I was ready. My mother thought this was about taking control from me. She did not realize she had handed control directly to the one person trained to notice when stories do not add up. And the judge had not asked her question yet. The hearing room felt different the second time. Not louder, not tense, focused. My mother sat straighter than before, confidence settling over her like armor. She believed momentum was on her side. Her lawyer spoke first, repeating the same careful phrases, the same selective history, the same concern framed as responsibility. He spoke about risk. He spoke about protection. He spoke as if I were not in the room. I listened without expression. Every word he said relied on one idea, that I was defined by my weakest moment and incapable of clarity under pressure. My mother nodded along, her face calm, almost pleased. She laughed softly once when the word unstable was repeated, as if the outcome was already decided. Then the judge spoke. She did not raise her voice. She did not interrupt. She waited until the lawyer finished, and the room settled into expectant silence. She adjusted her glasses and leaned forward slightly. The shift was subtle, but everyone felt it. She asked one question, directed not at me, but at my mother's lawyer. "Before we continue, do you know who this woman is?" The lawyer hesitated. He said my name, he said my age, he said my job title, vague and incomplete. The judge did not respond immediately. Silence stretched, uncomfortable and deliberate. Then she asked again, slower this time, "Do you understand her professional background?" My attorney stood. She did not argue. She did not dramatize. She stated facts, my credentials, my work history, my experience in financial analysis and fraud investigation. The judge nodded once, recognition passing across her face. The room changed. The judge turned back to my mother's lawyer and asked why none of this appeared in his filings. He tried to explain relevance. The explanation did not land. The judge allowed my attorney to proceed. What followed was not confrontation. It was presentation. Bank statements placed in order, dates aligned, withdrawals highlighted. My grandfather's notes read aloud exactly as written. The power of attorney examined line by line. The expired notarization confirmed. No accusations, no raised voices, just evidence. My mother stopped smiling. Her lawyer stopped speaking. Confidence drained from the room without announcement. When the judge finished reviewing the documents, she removed her glasses and placed them on the bench. She looked at my mother for a long moment and said nothing. Then she spoke clearly. The petition was denied. The allegations were unfounded. The evidence raised serious concerns of financial exploitation. The matter would be referred for further investigation. My mother opened her mouth. The judge raised a hand. Silence. I did not feel triumph. I felt release. Not from the case, but from the story my mother had tried to trap me inside. She had believed volume would replace truth. She had believed laughter would mask intent. She was wrong. As we left the courtroom, my mother did not look at me. She looked smaller somehow, not because she lost, but because she was seen. The judge's question had done what arguments never could. It reframed everything. This was never about whether I was capable. It was about whether the truth was allowed to speak. And now it had. The investigation did not begin with sirens or headlines. It began quietly, the way real consequences usually do. A letter arrived first, formal and neutral, requesting records and clarification. Then another, asking for explanations that could no longer hide behind emotion or authority. My mother tried to act unbothered, but the cracks were visible. Phone calls went unanswered. Meetings were postponed. Excuses started piling up faster than facts. I was not contacted at first. That, strangely, was the clearest sign that the truth was finally being handled correctly. When investigators reached out, they already had a timeline. They already had copies. They asked precise questions, the kind that assume answers exist and simply need confirmation. I answered calmly. I had nothing to embellish and nothing to defend. What surprised me most was not how much they uncovered, but how long it had been happening. Years, small withdrawals that grew larger, accounts opened without full disclosure, documents signed under pressure, stories told so often they hardened into routine. My mother had not thought of it as stealing. She had thought of it as entitlement, justified by motherhood, masked as sacrifice. When she was finally questioned, she tried the same approach she had used in court. Tears, outrage, accusations of betrayal. But this time there was no audience to sway, no judge to interrupt, no narrative to control. Just questions, repeated patiently until contradictions surfaced on their own. She called me once, late at night. Her voice was not angry, it was frightened. She asked why I was doing this to her. I told her I wasn't doing anything. I had simply stopped protecting a lie. She hung up without responding. The final outcome did not come with drama. Assets were frozen pending review. Restitution was ordered. Authority she had held quietly for years was removed just as quietly. There were no handcuffs, no public shaming, just consequences that could no longer be avoided. People often imagine justice as a moment, a gavel, a declaration. But justice is usually a process, slow and unglamorous, built on patience and records and the refusal to back down when guilt wears a familiar face. It asks you to stand firm even when silence would be easier. I did not gain a relationship from this. I did not gain closure in the way movies promise. What I gained was something far more important. Ownership of my own story, proof that clarity survives gaslighting, confirmation that being calm is not weakness when backed by truth. My mother never apologized. I did not expect her to. Some people would rather rewrite reality than admit they were wrong, but she never laughed again. Not in court, not in private. The illusion she relied on was gone, and with it, her power over me. The judge's question echoed in my mind long after everything ended. Not because it was clever, but because it was simple. Who is this person really? Once that question was asked, the rest unraveled on its own. I walked away without shouting, without revenge, without spectacle. I walked away intact, and for the first time, unafraid to be seen exactly as I was.